Had a question regarding eating disorders and compulsive eating. She's been struggling with this eating disorder for many years, tried everything, and nothing seems to work. So she wanted some insight on how to put an end to this. So let me share with you the cause of eating disorders and this compulsive eating. And the cause of it is the exact same cause for any other addiction. And it's the separate self, or the ego, the me that I believe to be. The separate self is really this feeling of lack. We all have it. If you take yourself to be a separate me. And we feel this lack deep in our core. And we seek to fulfill this lack by adding things to us. Addiction. To add. So this could be alcohol, food, pornography, shopping. You see, with all of these, we're adding something to us. It's an action of adding something to us to fulfill this sense of lack. We add food. We add an object. We add a person. It's really this seeking to fulfill this sense of lack. And this is the core of the separate self. So let's make it short. How do we overcome this? How do we overcome this? Well, if you're experiencing this eating disorder, this compulsive eating, where you've eaten, but it feels like you're still hungry. You're hungry for more. Or you'll see that if you've been struggling with this, that you'll see that there's certain times when you just seem to want to eat. You'll just kind of walk into the kitchen. You'll kind of wake up at night or be laying in your bed, can't go to sleep. So you'll just kind of mosey on down to the kitchen and almost sedate yourself, because really you're fulfilling this sense of lack. And this sense of lack is experienced as this uneasiness, this tension, this turmoil in you, this discomfort. So it's difficult to put your finger on it and go, yeah, that's the lack. But you'll know what I'm talking about. Not just if you have an eating disorder, not just if you're struggling with compulsive eating. If you're struggling with binge drinking or some sort of porn addiction or shopping addiction, it's the exact same feeling that arises. You'll actually know that feeling very well because it's very cyclical, and it's what starts the addiction cycle or the addiction pattern or behavior. See that an addiction is something that you're doing, but you're not always doing it constantly. Like I said, there's this feeling of uneasiness or discomfort or emptiness or lack, or something's just kind of not right. And then this is when the addiction triggers in. Boom. Now you go seeking to try and fulfill that. Let me go and buy something online. Let me go and visit some porn website. Let me go and open the fridge. Let me go and open a bottle of wine. Something like that. But you'll know that there's some sort of feeling that arises before. So the key is to look for this feeling that arises before. And then what you'll notice is you've got the feeling that arises, and then now wait for the next thing that comes, which is very sneaky, which are the thoughts that come with the feeling. The thoughts come with that feeling, and they're thoughts of, let me put an end to this feeling. But it doesn't really sound like that in the mind. That's not really what the narrative is. The narrative is usually justifying the action. Oh, I had a hard day. A glass or two is okay. I need to reward myself. So let me go and eat the rest of the cake. I'll quit this porn addiction tomorrow. It always seems to justify, and even maybe when you are resisting it or almost trying to fight with it, it feels like it's going to postpone it. I'll drop this bad habit tomorrow, or this will be the last time, one more time, and then I'll really put an end to this. So there's these thoughts that then support the pattern, the habit. And this is where you usually give in. Oh, okay, yeah. Tomorrow I'll end it. Yeah, you're right. I've had a hard day. Let me go into the fridge. And then it's almost like at that point, you can't stop. It's compulsive. That's what a compulsion is. It's something that you can't stop. It's compulsive behavior. So this compulsive eating is just something that you started and you can't stop. And you can't stop it from starting. But the thing that you haven't tried, most likely, is sitting with that feeling. Sitting with the feeling, sitting with the thoughts. Not taking any action. Just simply observing that feeling. Just witnessing it and witness those thoughts. Now, you don't go and create other thoughts saying, I wish I wasn't thinking this. Why do these thoughts have to come here? I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this. That's just going to maintain it. But instead of giving in so easily as we usually do, without any attempt to sit with this feeling, as soon as that feeling comes, it's just surfacing. Oh, yeah, into the fridge, or yeah, into the fridge. But what you haven't done is let it arise and let it reach its climax, you could say. Which, yes, it feels very uncomfortable. It feels like, what do people usually say? Mind over matter kind of thing. Like you have to have a strong mind. This is just kind of common terminology that people use. But it really doesn't have to do with the mind in the sense that you're controlling this with your mind. It's more of actually surrendering to the feeling. Not in the sense of surrendering to it and giving in and then going into the fridge, but surrendering any sort of resistance to this feeling that is arising within you. Surrendering to the thoughts that are arising. You're not trying to battle the thoughts or have a war with the thoughts or try to stop them or trying to swap them. None of that. You're just simply allowing everything to be as it is. That it's okay. Because usually this feeling feels a lot like something's wrong. It feels a lot like, if it could speak, it would feel like it's not okay. Something is off. Something is wrong. I'm not okay. So let me go and be okay by going into the fridge. If you look at it, it's this feeling of discomfort that's arising, and then you're looking to food or porn or alcohol or shopping to then feel comfortable. It's more of you're looking to those addictions to relieve yourself of this discomfort. This feeling of lack, emptiness is there, and then you seek to fulfill yourself by adding to you. This feeling of wanting to merge with the food, wanting to merge with whatever you're buying on Amazon, wanting to merge with someone through porn or sex. Whatever these addictions are, it's always this feeling that you want to add it to you or merge with the object. Because again, we're misidentifying ourselves for being something limited as a separate entity. And as long as we believe to be a separate entity, then we're always going to feel incomplete. So then we'll need to complete ourselves with something by adding it to us. We'll always feel the sense of lack. So then we'll always seek to fulfill ourselves by adding something to us. So it all comes from this root cause of suffering, which is ignorance, not knowing what we really are, misidentifying ourselves with something that we're not, ignoring ourselves. This is ignorance. So when this feeling arises, do what you haven't done, which is actually ironic because you don't do anything. See, an addiction is something that you do. But what you haven't done is just simply not done anything. Just allow it to be. Allow that feeling to arise. Allow the discomfort to be there. Allow that feeling of lack. Accept it. Feel it fully. And just see what happens. Now, of course, I'm making it sound easier said than done. And I've struggled with this myself early on in life. So I know exactly what this feels like. I know that feeling. You can have it timed where you know when this comes up. Every addiction is essentially a ritual. There's something that's very ritualistic, something that's very hidden. You don't want people to know. It's something that you only know. And you feel it. You feel like this, almost like this darkness takes over and you lose control. Something takes over and you feel like you're overpowered by it. Something takes control and is making you do something that you don't really want to do, and you don't even know why you're doing it. This is why you can't solve these eating disorders or this compulsive eating by any sort of food restriction or diets or any of that type of stuff, which this questioner has tried. But what she hasn't tried is what most of us have never tried, which is to be courageous and just face that feeling. Sometimes it even feels like a fear. And really that is a fear. Because like I said, this separate self, this root feeling, this core feeling of the separate self is this lack, this incompleteness, this not enough. And as long as we believe to be a separate me, we all feel this. That we're not enough, that we're incomplete, that we're lacking something. And it's this feeling along with the feeling of death. That as long as we believe to be something that started, we're also something that's going to come to an end. And these addictions are something that the separate self, you could say, uses to maintain itself, to sustain itself. That when this feeling arises, it then needs to be fulfilled. And it's almost like, that now I'm comfortable. All right. Or I'm not feeling that lack anymore. I'm fulfilled. Or yeah, everything's okay now. But notice how it's just temporary. And then it arises the next day or a couple days after. Or you'll know. You could map it out on your calendar. You know when this arises. Is it a daily thing? Is it a once a week thing? Is it whatever it is? But what I'm saying is it uses these patterns, these habits, all of this doing to maintain itself, to sustain itself. And that feeling, if you don't feed it, if you don't do what you usually do and try and fulfill, then it's also a fear. It's also a fear of coming to an end. And the feeling is very strong, and the thoughts are very sneaky, covert, sly, manipulative, innocent. They're very disguised, where something's taking over you in this addiction pattern, cycle, habit. And you know that you don't really want to go through with it. You know that you want to put an end to it. Just like the questioner. I've tried everything. You're looking to try and end this. You know that something's off here. But how is it that in the moment, all of a sudden, it's like you get talked out of it by the mind? Yeah. Tomorrow I'll end it. Tomorrow never comes. It just continues to perpetuate itself. It continues to sustain itself, to maintain itself. Like I said, it's this fear of coming to an end. Any fulfillment that you feel at the moment, it's only temporary. That's why it's a cycle. The same feeling of feeling lack or incomplete or unwhole, not enough, it shows up the next day. And perhaps there's a few of these addictions at play. So it might not always be compulsive eating, but it might be compulsive eating, and then the next day it's some shopping, the next day it's porn, whatever it is. But it sustains itself, it maintains itself with these the cycles of addiction, these addiction patterns, behaviors. So be courageous. You know when that feeling's arising, and when it arises, just welcome it, invite it, be open to it. Just be curious, what's going to happen here if I just simply don't do anything? What happens if I'm just with this feeling? Let me just see. And feel that feeling fully. Don't try and label it. Don't try and judge it. Just feel it as just energy. Just be with it. And when those thoughts come, you can't just do anything. Go on, get to the fridge. Or you can't just sit here. Get on your computer. Come on, you just open the bottle. When those thoughts just come, don't play with those thoughts. Don't entertain the thoughts. Don't give importance to the thoughts. Just ignore them. That doesn't mean to try and get rid of them. You're just not paying attention to them. You're watching the thoughts. You're witnessing the thoughts. You're experiencing the thoughts. But you're not giving into the thoughts. And that's what you're always doing, is you're always giving into that. And just see how long you can sit with that feeling. And what you'll notice is that feeling will start to become more and more uncomfortable. And what you'll notice is those thoughts will start to become more and more sneaky and more persuasive. But there's going to be a point where you aren't overtaken by the feeling any longer. And there's going to be a point where the thoughts are going to be ineffective. And by seeing this pattern and knowing it too well, because it's a pattern, you know that you always buy into the thoughts, you give into the thoughts, and this is why it's a cycle. So the practice is simply, it's a non-doing practice. A little bit of an oxymoron because every practice is something that you do. But what you simply do is when that feeling comes, if it helps, just lay down with that feeling. Physically lay down with it. Because these addictions usually happen in private, when you're by yourself. So when that feeling comes, just lay down with that feeling. Lay down and just feel that feeling fully. Let the thoughts come. Experience the thoughts, experience the feelings, and just see how long you can experience that feeling, that discomfort. And like I said, I'm making it sound easy, but it's not. It's not easy. It's not easy. But even just experiencing that feeling for maybe 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes and then giving in, you'll see that you're almost like, gotta watch what I say, like you're not giving your power away, because that's what you do, is you give the power away. You empower those thoughts. By believing those thoughts, paying attention to those thoughts, giving interest to those thoughts, you empower it. You're empowering the addiction. You're empowering the separate self. You're believing it to be true. But what happens when you just simply sit with it? And like I said, with this practice over, I don't know how long, but you'll notice the effects immediately. That if you just sit with it, and maybe the first time you try this, maybe instead of giving in right away, maybe you sit with that feeling for 5 minutes and then you give in. And then maybe the next day or the day after, whenever the next repeat of it, then you do another 5 minutes, or maybe you get to 10 minutes. But you'll notice as something's happening, the more you're experiencing that feeling, something starts changing. That addiction no longer has the power over you because you're not giving your power to it. And you're standing in your power, you could say, as the true self, the one that is already whole, already complete, already fulfilled, lacks nothing, needs nothing. The one that is beyond birth and death, eternal. And it takes feeling that feeling fully, just being with it, for you to, you could say, separate yourself with that which you are and that which you're not. And you'll see that this addiction is not really you. That's not really what you are. But instead, you are that which is aware of it. That this play of energy that is happening within you, that these thoughts that seem to be you, those thoughts are not really you. And it's almost like you're starving your addiction. You're starving that pattern. You're starving the ego. And it's almost like it gets weaker because you're starving it. That feeling isn't so strong anymore. You're just feeling it more and more. And it loses its strength. The thoughts, you're watching it. You're observing it. You're not giving into it. It's like you're watching all of the tactics of the mind, how it comes across as your best friend, and yeah, you go ahead, you earned it. It's your reward. Go on, get into the chocolate cake. Yeah, we'll get to ending this addiction. We'll get some real help next week. Let's just enjoy the rest of the week and continue this cycle. You'll start seeing how it uses all of these tactics, and you'll start to actually see every play it makes. Why is that? Because you're simply observing it. You're witnessing it. You're not becoming the pattern like you usually are, but instead you're remaining as your true self, which is watching that pattern, watching the play of energy, watching it come, watching it go, watching it arise, watching it fall, watching it change. And you're watching this as that which is ever present, that which is changeless, that which is eternal. So give this a shot and see if it helps. I'll see you in the next one.